Happy Halloween, everybody. Kevin J Johnston here. This is the Real Estate and Money Show. We have episode 39 tonight, Acts, Laws, and Lies. And we're going to talk to you about the differences between acts and laws and how acts and laws pertain to you and we, the people in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about American stuff tonight as well for all of our American fans who'd like to join us here on Thursday nights. I want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight. It's lovely to see you all again. Why are you watching this show? You should be giving out candy, should you not? Or maybe staying at home eating the candy that you didn't give away. By the way, could everyone let me know in the chat room tonight how many kids are coming by? I always remember when I was growing up, especially in the Toronto area, there would be hundreds of kids on the street in costumes trick-or-treating. And the last time I was in the province of Ontario, that's about 4 years ago now, I don't think that there was anything more than about 20 kids that were out for the entire night. It was actually pretty depressing. So I'm hoping that we can find some way to get our culture back. I can tell you, I'm down here in Panama City, and they've had Halloween decorations up since beginning of September. And they've also got the Christmas decorations up now here in Panama City. So I'm looking forward to seeing the big celebrations that we have also in Panama. 5 national holidays I intend to enjoy. Day of the Dead is going to be on the 2nd. They've got National Flag Day. They love their flag here. They do not step on, spit on, wipe your nose with, or burn the Panamanian flag here in Panama. You're going to get worked over something fierce. So don't ever do that. They've got Flag Day. They have Independence Day from Colombia. They have Independence Day from Spain. Also celebration of the end of the American occupation. So there is nothing but parties. And I'm going to go and take a couple of days off and enjoy Panamanian parties this November. As this country's been very good to me. I've now been in Panama for 7 months, and I honestly have no desire to leave. And not any desire whatsoever. So we're going to cover quite a bit tonight in reference to tax. We're going to be covering a little bit about real estate and how real estate and taxes in Canada are conjoined, and the best ways that you're going to have to combat everything that the Canada Revenue Agency is choosing to do to steal more and more money from you. So let's get into something that a lot of you don't know, and that is in Canada, there is something called the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And that Taxpayers' Bill of Rights has 16 clauses within it, all of which are protective of you and not the Canada Revenue Agency. Now, I just so happen to have the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights up and running here. And I want to cover them. I'm only going to cover 3 tonight. You can read them on your own. It's on Canada.ca, the official website of the country of Canada. Hold on there. I just lost the link. There we go. There's only 3 clauses, and the most interesting of them all, there's an interesting one, there's a powerful one, and there's an absolutely awesome one. So let's go with the first one here, which is clause number 1. In Canada, your tax rights or taxpayers' rights are, you have the right to receive entitlements and pay no more and no less tax than is required by law. Now, in Canada, albeit there's kind of a rule, a guideline, a strictly, sternly enforced idea that you have to submit a tax return, but there's not a single law that says you actually have to give the Canada Revenue Agency any money. And I mean not one law. There is not one algorithm that shows how much you have to pay for tax in Canada. Yeah, go through it yourself. There's the Excise Tax Act in Canada. There's the Income Tax Act. There's the GST Act. And there is the Canada Revenue Agency Act. And not a single one of these acts actually illustrate to anyone about how much money you're going to have to pay the Canadian government. So clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says you don't have to pay any more or any less tax than is required by law. But if there's no number that is required by law, then What are you guys giving the CRA money for? I want to cover that one a little bit more. Greg, thank you for the gifts, by the way. I appreciate that. And if you're watching on TikTok tonight, double fingers. Let's get the likes flying and everyone share. Please, same thing on Rumble. If I could get everybody hitting the thumbs up, please, which you'll see pretty much below the T in my name right here. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is great because when it issues the statement, you don't have to pay any tax except for what is defined by law. And then there is no law that states that you actually have to pay that tax. Well, then I'm going to tell all of you, keep your money. Stop paying tax. But if you're going to stop paying income tax in Canada, you got to do it the right way. And you do it the right way by utilizing every single solitary form that the Canada Revenue Agency makes available to Canadians that will actually benefit them. And of course, I just so happen to know what all those forms are, and I utilize those forms to get people's tax bills down to zero legally. I've been asked the question a lot in relation to Clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights in Canada. If I don't have a house and I don't have a car and I don't have bank accounts and stocks and bonds, retirement plans, if I don't have any of that and I owe the CRA money, can they take any money from me? No. And especially if you don't have a bank account in Canada. And the only way that they would ever know if you have a bank account in the United States or Costa Rica or Panama or Grenada is if you tell them. All right. So Derek is asking me a question here. Is any of this possible when working for an employer that reports to CRA? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. If you're on a T4, I can absolutely wipe out your entire tax debt utilizing other forms that the CRA makes available to us. 100%. All right. So with you not having to pay tax, if you have no assets, you have nothing they can take, then don't pay. You don't have to pay. I've had numerous conversations with CRA representatives, and they're very upset with me, I might add, about the fact that I record my calls with them and, of course, put them up for the whole world to hear. And why would I not do that? Because all of you need to know that the CRA does not have any power whatsoever. So Clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is going to protect you in that there's no law in Canada that says you have to give the money. They'll try to get it. If you've got a bank account in Canada, they'll try to get that. If you've got a house in Canada, they're not going to seize the house and sell it. They're going to put what's called a writ on the house, which is not even a lien. It's just a notification that you owe somebody some money. But if you file an appeal with the CRA, which of course I know how to do, and then we just go to a judge and say, listen, we've appealed this decision and we would like the writ lifted off the house, please. The judge will do it because the CRA did not ever use legal means to be able to put those writs on your property. Now, the next clause that I like is number 7. This one's fabulous. I love this one. Very powerful. You have the right, unless otherwise provided by law, not to pay income tax amounts in dispute before you've had an impartial review. So you have the right to not, I'm reading this verbatim. You have the right to not pay personal tax amounts in dispute until you've had an impartial review by the CRA, or if you've sent an appeal to the Tax Court of Canada until that court has issued its decision. Think about that. So if the CRA says, we assess you, we think that you owe us 100 grand, we can't prove it because we're losers, so we're going to say that you do and threaten you in the hopes that that you pay, which many people unfortunately do. So you appeal it and take it to court, which will buy you between a year and even 3 years to get to tax court to argue in tax court about the validity of the claim that the CRA is making that you owe money. And the worst thing that happens if you lose is that the CRA issues another assessment, which we then appeal. So the appeals go forever. Now, in that time, we can move your house out of your name into a numbered corporation, into a family trust. We can take all your money and move it into a corporate account somewhere else in the country, somewhere else in the world. We can, if the CRA knows about other properties that you might have, We can get those moved into other numbered corporations. We can move everything away so the CRA cannot get to it. And that's the advantage to objecting to anything at all that the CRA says. If the Canada Revenue Agency says you owe money, we object and we get you an appeal date. And that is what Clause 7 says. The tax bill is null and void until that impartial hearing can be had. All right, Deborah says, if your client has to go to court, do you go to court for them? Well, not for them, with them. Yes, you can put me down as your representative. Depending the judge, some judges really hate my guts because I see through the farce that is the court system. And some judges are impartial and they'll just let the whole thing go through. So if we lose, we just appeal that judge's decision and then we appeal whatever comes after that decision. Tax court in Canada is not a court, it's a tribunal, and the judge cannot issue monetary penalties against you. That's even on the website for it. Here's the other one too. I like this one very much. Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, Clause 15. This one is radical to the max, dude. Love this one. You have the right to be represented by a person of your choice. You can choose a person to represent you and get advice about your tax and benefit affairs. Once you authorize us to deal with this person, we can discuss your situation with your representative. Right, that's me. Even if the CRA says that I'm not allowed to represent people, and they've already pulled this crap with me. They sent me a letter saying I can't represent people, but they don't have the authority to tell me that, so too bad for them. Clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights in Canada states you can have me represent you in tax court or against the CRA or against any other body to do with taxes. There's also a ton of case law that says that I would be able to represent you in regular court, but regular court, it's too time consuming. I just don't have the time to do criminal cases or over the top large civil cases. They take forever. I wish I had the time of the day, but I truly don't. So I'm not going to be able to take on any cases like that. But if it's tax court, we absolutely can take it on. And I'm looking forward to taking it on. All right. So Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, I suggest strongly you read that. It is on the Canadian official government website. Please read it and enjoy it. Don't forget to share this video on TikTok and share everything out, if you could, please, on X and on Rumble. There's other social media platforms that we're on tonight, but they don't seem to be all that great, like Facebook, for example. Facebook is just junk these days. Here's a really good one. Is there any way to avoid paying true dope capital gains taxes on an American property? Well, the easy answer, my friend, is yes. You hire me. Here's I'm going to answer that question with a question, which I don't like doing, but I'm going to. Why the hell, as a Canadian citizen, would you tell the Canadian government that you have a house in the United States? I'll wait. Of course you won't. Right? And if you have an accountant that says to you, well, you need to report it because I don't want to lose my license, then fire the guy. You got to ask two questions when you're hiring an accountant in Canada. One, do you believe that the CRA can pull your license? Two, if the CRA audits me, are you going to cooperate with the audit? If the answer is yes to both questions, that's a coward. They will screw you sideways. You got to get rid of them. It's a sad story. It really is a sad story, but I'm going to cover it anyway. A gentleman came to me. This guy makes a lot of money, owns a house in Arizona. His accountant in Canada, keep in mind, this gentleman does not make a penny in Canada. It's all in the United States. He actually has to travel to the USA 9 months a year and work within the borders of the United States. He only lives in Canada 3 months a year. The accountant asks him, do you have any property in the United States? Yes, a small 2-bedroom house in Arizona. The accountant asks him 10 times, are you sure? Are you sure you only have one property? Yes. And the accountant decided to, because he's a coward and he's only saving his own ass, is mark down that the client was actually earning revenue on that property, even though it wasn't a rental. He was living in it. The guy was living in it for 9 months of the year, and he was not renting it out for the other 3 because he didn't want to. The accountant screwed him by saying, yeah, CRA, he owns a property and he's renting it. But then the same accountant phones this client who's now mine, and I've got permission to tell this story, by the way, calls him up and says, you told me you only had 1 property in the United States. You've got 3. And the guy's questioning himself, saying, what are you talking? What? No, I've got only 1 house. No, but you've got 2 bank accounts that have more than 100 grand in them. So I have to count those as property, and I'm going to put all that down for the CRA to know about. I don't want to lose my license. The accountant hired a private investigator to investigate his own client to find out if the client had property in the United States and bank accounts, so that the accountant, who's supposed to work for the client, could then screw the client and snitch, telling the CRA about these properties. Think about that. I'm the exact opposite, everyone. If you've got a property in the United States of America, shut up about it. You can tell me about it because you're going to be in a client-solicitor privilege relationship with me. And I'm going to tell you, no, we're not reporting that. Why would I tell the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, that you have a house so that you can pay more tax? Remember that every single number that you put on a tax return in Canada is 100% voluntary. I have just recently put nothing but names and signatures on more than 20 tax returns for clients, at which point I then called the Canada Revenue Agency saying, I have just sent in all of these tax returns. They have no numbers on them, just my authorized signature and my client's name. That's it. And you're not going to get anything until the end of the fiscal year before December 31st. And that's how I buy my clients all the time in the world that we need to file their taxes properly. And I tell them, we are invoking clause 7, so you will not be adding any penalties of any kind. We don't owe anything until the reports are done. So here's the question I've got for you now is, if you voluntarily put stuff on a tax return, and if you were to only put your name and signature on a tax return with no numbers, and they accept it, then do you think that I'm correct? Or do you think that that coward accountant I just talked about is correct in reference to how much authority that the CRA actually has? You can all do this. In fact, all of you could submit tax returns all the time with just your name, social insurance number, and signature. No numbers, not even a 0. You could do that. It's legal. They'll accept it. They'll assess you, but that doesn't matter. An assessment is just a guess. And when they assess you, we appeal that. So 2-3 years down the road, we get a day in court, if you will, about their assessment. And they're going to have to prove to the court why they assessed you. If you put nothing on your tax return, nothing, and they assess you and you appeal it, you're going to win, because what the hell are they assessing it on? It's nothing. They just make it up. So I want all of you to stop fearing the Canada Revenue Agency and stop fearing all this paperwork. So if you are a Canadian citizen with property anywhere else in the world, shut up about the property. Say nothing about it. If you've got bank accounts in the United States, Grenada, Panama, wherever, be quiet. Don't even tell your family about it until, well, maybe write it down in your will for them so they know. But that's it. Stop talking about the things that you own. Capital gains also, I'll just reflect a bit more there, DRT boy, is that capital gains, there's no way for the Canada Revenue Agency to know that you've sold a property with a capital gain unless you tell them. That's it. It's none of their business. They say, well, you got to do it. Well, no, you don't. It's voluntary. You know, the CRA should thank their lucky stars that people even bother filling out tax returns these days. Everybody's broke. That's what's going on here. So if I am your tax guy and you've got a property, I'm not telling the CRA. I'm going to have a look at your property because the odds are pretty good that the property is not even in a place where it could be taxed anyway, especially if you're losing money on it. simple things happen out there. One client bought a house, overpaid for it. The thing had water damage and mold. He had to fix the whole place up. And by the time he sold it, he lost $200,000. 200 grand that he lost. So we put all the invoices forward, and I called all these suppliers and everybody else who had actually worked on his place. And I told them, I need you to make sure that you have all the invoices that you sent my client. So we wrote off every expense and we wrote off the capital loss. Sometimes you lose in the gold market, in the housing market, in the antiques market. Sometimes you just lose. So that is when we report capital, but only losses. You never report a capital gain. It's pointless. There's no point, and there's no way for them to compel you to report it. They have no power to make you do so. Mverse is asking, why does the CRA get a copy of T4s and T5s? Because your employer is a coward and submits them. That's the only reason. Because your employer is a gutless jellyfish, spineless individual who thinks that they have to submit the T4, who thinks they actually have to put you on a T4 in the first place, and they don't. You got to remember, if you're an employer in Canada, if let's say Johnny, you're paying Johnny 100 grand a year. Let's actually work out what that tax rate would be. I'll do that right now. So $100,000 per year salary in the province of Ontario. The federal tax is $14,045. The provincial tax is going to be $7,000, and the Canada Pension Plan premium is going to be $5,200. So the tax rate is about 31.48%. Now, the federal tax and the provincial tax that the employer withdraws or holds back from you, he has to give that to the Canada Revenue. Well, he thinks he does. He chooses to give that to the Canada Revenue Agency. But then he also has to match that number from his own account. So in reality, he's not just given the CRA $14,000 federal tax. He's given the CRA $28,000 because he's got to double it. So if you're an employer, why would you do that? Why would you put anybody on a T4 salary? Put everybody on contract, everyone, make them register a numbered corporation, get a GST or an HST and a PST number so that they invoice you every week for what you owe them. They put their HST and GST on it, and that is an expense. So it's the perfect expense. And you can see there, the employer is now saving, what's he saving? 30 grand a year. You can do a lot with $30,000 if you don't have to give that up. So each and every one of you need to start registering your numbered corporations, which of course I can do for you, and invoicing your clients. Get the friggin' hell off of T4s. They're of no benefit. Larry asks a good question here. Can you apply for pension if you have not done your taxes? Just bring your taxes up to date there, Larry, and you can apply for pension. But you got to understand, in Canada. Now, I'll give you the example of my dear old mom. She's been dead now for a while, but dear old mom always thought that I was crazy not paying tax. She kept asking me, why are you not paying tax? You're not going to get a pension. I kept telling her, Ma, love you, but you're wrong. You are giving up between 20 and 30% of your salary every year, and I guarantee you that your pension is going to be less than $1,000 when you finally retire per month. So me, I get to keep the 100 grand a year that I make. I get to keep all of it, every penny of it. And you don't. And if I invest my money properly in gold, silver, property, in the last 5 to 10 years, crypto, if I'm investing it properly, I don't need a pension. I don't need a pension. Why would I want one? And of course, dear old mom, when she finally did go on Canada Pension Plan, ended up getting less than $950 a month. So, I mean, I had to. I said, hey, Ma, how much do you get every month on your pension? Ma, hey, Ma. And, you know, she got a bit upset with me and gave me, like, not a real slap in the face, but enough to know that I've been told. And dear old mom can slap me all she wants because, you know, it's my mom. right? But I was right. And she eventually admitted that I was right. But it's sad that she went paying taxes the entire time that I was alive while she was alive. So I watched her pay taxes for how long? I guess 46 years of my life, constantly paying taxes because she wanted the pension. And it's that I hate that word, pension. Pension. I want my pension. It's a nervous tick. All of you think the Canada Pension Plan is somehow going to benefit you. It's not. So I would say, let's get your tax bill to zero. Forget taxes altogether. Keep every penny you make. Buy crypto. Yeah. There's a good chance that XRP, for example, is going to be the digital currency of choice for Russia. Bitcoin is the currency of choice for El Salvador and Costa Rica. Countries around the world are adopting this stuff. So what is it that you're all waiting for? And why are you wanting to part with your money to the CRA when you could be investing it? So Larry, if you want Canada Pension Plan, just let me get your taxes up to date. It'll be minuscule what you get. But Larry, if I go back and redo your taxes for 10 years, then the odds are pretty good I can probably get you about half of all the money you've ever paid for 10 years back. Very, very high, in fact, because I know what I'm doing. Okay. Wilson, you're asking me about the United States. I don't do personal taxes in the United States, but I do purchase American corporations. So I've flipped the slide here. You can see if you have IRS debt and you run a corporation, if you've got state tax debt, if you've got bank loans, if you have credit card debt, that's all corporate in the United States, I will buy your corporation from you and completely take your IRS debt away from you so you don't have anything to worry about. I do the same thing in Canada, everybody. So I do all taxes in Canada. I do corporate taxes only in the United States. That'll change in time, everybody. But right now, it's only corporate in the United States. All right. Just checking your questions here. Marie asks, what if I'm a shareholder from father's estate from his company? He passed away years ago. Marie, that's I would need to understand the structure of the company. You own 10% of it. So if the company's profitable, then you can actually take dividends out. You weren't the original investor, so you can't really necessarily do a tax-free corporate withdrawal, but I can register you a numbered corporation. And what you can do is transfer your shares from your own name to your numbered corporation's name. And then your numbered corporation can take dividends weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. We can do that. And then all that money is going to go in your corporate account tax-free. That I can do for you. So if you have 10, 15, 20% of an estate and the corporation is still making money, then yes, I'm going to move your money away from your own personal name. Yeah. Marie, definitely get a hold of me. Kent, could you put my website address in the chat room, please, so that she can see it there on TikTok? And Bob, can you do the same thing here on Kick, please? I appreciate that. Thank you. All righty. So it's going through a couple things to do with Canadian law here. I want to talk about acts versus laws when it pertains to taxes. I'm not going to cover acts for medical and acts like the Highway Traffic Act of Ontario. I'm not going to cover that stuff. What I'm going to cover, though, is the difference between an act and a law when it comes to governing income taxes in Canada. So the difference between a law and an act in Canada, I'm going to read verbatim here from a lawyer's website. Not a very good lawyer, so I'm not going to credit the guy, but it says law implies a system of rules recognized by a country to regulate the actions of the citizens, so the entire country. On the other hand, an act is that segment of legislation that deals with specific circumstances and people. So many use the two legal terms interchangeably, but there is a notable difference between act and law, as the former is a subset of the latter. So what they're saying to you here is laws are for the entire country. It's for everybody. You know, don't kill people. Don't steal people's stuff. Don't commit acts of heinous violence you know what I'm getting at. Don't shoot people. These are laws. And the laws that we're talking about here, laws, they pertain to everyone, regardless of wealth, social standing, caste, religion, at least in theory, they're supposed to. Not in Canada, but that's the way it's supposed to work in theory. Whereas an act are a set of rules that are very specific to a very specific thing, such as the Income Tax Act is very specific to just income tax, but also even more specific to just what the Canada Revenue Agency is allowed to do. So the Income Tax Act really doesn't pertain to we the people. I've read the whole thing. I can tell you it's just a rule book for the Canada Revenue Agency as to what they can and cannot do. The Excise Tax Act just kind of expands upon it, whereas the Excise Tax Act is not just income tax, but it's all the other taxes that they collect, like corporate income tax, goods and services tax, and so on. But again, these acts they're not laws for the people. They do pertain to the CRA. So whenever the Canada Revenue Agency is quoting an act, they'll quote a very specific clause in an act that says, well, we're going to take your money because clause 125 subsection 3 says we can. But then you hire me and I send back a letter saying, oh yeah, but here's the 15 clauses that counter that. By the way, here's also clause 1, 7, and 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights that will counter that. Oh, and by the way, here's the criminal law on extortion, theft, intimidation, uttering threats, criminal harassment. There's all kinds of laws you're breaking. So these are the laws that I will quote to the CRA representatives who are stating that the act somehow warrants their god-awful behavior. So I wanted to just point out to all of you that the acts that the Canada Revenue Agency are referring, and I don't know what the acts are in the United States in reference to personal income tax. I have not studied it yet. All right, but the act, when the CRA is quoting it to any of you, it does not pertain to you. It's very similar to bylaws, municipal bylaws in Canada. They don't pertain to you. They only pertain to the people who work for the city. I have my company is Canmore Acquisitions Incorporated. My company has bylaws, right? They don't pertain to you. They pertain to anybody who works for my corporation. That's all that a bylaw is. It's just rules for an entity that you choose to be a part of. So you could choose to work for the city of Montreal or the city of Toronto or the city of New York. Well, New York, different story, but you can choose to work for these places, and then those bylaws of the city will pertain to you, but municipal bylaws are not laws. So we, the people, don't have to abide by any of them at all. Now, if a building, if you are in a government-owned building, like a municipally owned building, I've had this happen a lot to me back in the days of, you remember that COVID nonsense. I would go to public buildings and ask to talk to somebody to prove that there was anything, and they wouldn't do it. So I would get these 30-day bans from my hometown city hall, or from the Central Library, or from Toronto City Hall. They would say, you're banned for 30 days. And I would show up exactly 24 hours later, and they'd say, wait, we banned you. I said, well, you did. But a ban from a municipal property can only last for 24 hours. That's it, because it's publicly funded. All right. Your tax dollars are not voluntary. They're taken through threat of, we're going to steal your house if you don't pay these taxes. So because it's publicly funded, the public has a lot of rights. So what I'm getting at is these bans, you can't go to City Hall for 30 days. Not in Canada. It's 24 hours. The Canada Revenue Agency has recently told me, you can't represent people because we don't like you. You've hurt our feelings. Okay, but that's their policy. And their policy is not law. So they actually do not have the right to tell me that I cannot enact Clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights and represent my clients. They do not have the right to tell you, you can't hire me to represent you against the CRA. I've already sent my letter in. If they keep this nonsense up, I'm just going to hit them with a huge lawsuit, and we'll drag this out in the courts, and it'll be incredibly embarrassing for them when we all find out that they are so afraid of me that they're going to try to ban me from communicating with them. Are you kidding me? Yeah, like that's going to happen. So I want you all to know just how many rights you truly do have. Laws pertain to everybody. An act pertains to one specific thing or one specific group with a very specific intent. And they have to be brought forward as a bill. They have to pass 3 readings in Parliament. Then they have to pass 3 readings in the Senate. Then they have to get royal assent from the king. And not a lot of them get that far, if you want the truth. They really don't. Tig Devil is asking how to get a hold of me. If somebody could please put my website address in the chat room there in TikTok, please. By all means, get a hold of me. Hit me up on the contact form. Got a couple more questions here. All right, Freebird says they give you fines if you don't get permits to build for your home. You have to follow their bylaws. Okay, again, when you are applying for a permit to get something done in a municipality in Canada, the best thing in the world to do, like the fastest way to get a permit like that done, because yeah, they will use the courts and they have unfortunately unlimited resources to fight you on that. But what they're doing is they are relying on the municipal act of the province that you're in Canada. So if you want, let's say, a swimming pool, and you only want your pool to be 20 feet long by 10 feet wide, you put forward an application for 60 feet by 50 feet, and they'll come back and they'll say, no, you can't have that, but you get their attention because it's so big, and then they will very rapidly get you the smaller one. You see, they're weirdos that work for government. If you say you want a huge pool, they'll give you a permit for a small one within a couple of days, because they're going to think, I showed him, that guy, who does he think he is? He wants a 60-foot pool. I limited him to 25 feet. But you only wanted to build a 20-footer. It really doesn't take all that much to get that kind of a thing done. So permits are something that you would apply for well in advance, 6 months at least in Canada. That's why I hate Canada so much. If you want a permit here in Panama City to build anything, you just grease the correct palm and you get a permit within a day. It takes a day to get a permit here to build a 1,000-foot tall skyscraper. A day. So some systems are just better than others. So Freebird, if you want to do something that requires a permit, always apply early and apply for something crazy big and let them knock it down for you a bit. And then when you eventually you'll end up getting what you want. I mean, I remember applying for a 12-foot high fence in my hometown of Mississauga, and they thought they just beat me down something fierce because they only approved 8 foot. But that's all I wanted was an 8-foot high fence, because the 4x4s I had ordered were 12 feet long. 4 feet was going to be underground and only 8 feet above the ground. And the plywood I was using for the fencing was 4 foot by 8 foot. So, I mean, they really showed me, didn't they? All right. Think about that. All right, Deborah. Thank you very much, Deborah, for putting my website address up. I appreciate that. DC says, I'm told the CRA has power to take my wages. They don't at all. Let me explain this one. And this is about Canadian cowardice. You can always count on Canadian businesses to do a couple of things. Number one, screw up customer service completely. Count on it. Number two, to be a complete gutless coward and cave into the demands of anyone who says they work for the government. The CRA, if they can't get you to do your taxes or pay your taxes, they will go to your employer and send your employer a requirement to pay letter. And your employer's on the letter, it'll say that if you don't pay us before paying your staff member, we may audit you. Well, so friggin' what if they do? So your employer is a coward and says, I don't want the trouble. Oh my God. So I'm going to steal money from my staff and give it to the CRA because they sent me an unlawful letter. That requirement to pay is not lawful. It's not a court order. It's not a legal command. So your employer could send a letter back saying, go straight to hell and go get a court order from a judge sitting in court wearing a gown. Your employer could say that. So if your employer is to do this to you, sue the employer and charge your employer criminally with theft. I'm serious. Just go right ahead and do it. Also contact me and I'll redo your taxes properly so that the garnishment order will go away. But your employer is a coward. So it's the employer that chooses to give that money to the CRA. If the CRA was to audit your employer just has to contact me and I'll get rid of the auditor. You don't have to cooperate with audits in Canada. They're a joke. Auditors have no power. They're just losers, all of them. So I get rid of auditors. That's what I do. If you're going to run a business in Canada, you should know this stuff. Yeah, and the biggest asset that you have as an employer are your staff. What are you thinking? Stealing money from your staff. What are you thinking? Especially if he's a highly skilled individual with a skill that's not easy to replace. You're going to give money away because you get a letter in the mail, not something served by a court officer or a police officer, not something with a judge's stamp on it, just a letter. But that's what the employers do. They're gutless. So sue your employer, charge your employer. Theft. There you go. Jackie's asking me if I know anything about Ireland. Well, I've got family in Ireland, but I've never been. I'd like to go. I might go next year, but I can tell you that Ireland's collapsing. That we know. I know that Irishmen need to stand up and become men again and clean up the mess that their government's made for them. But that's another topic for another day. All right. But I mean, for Irish taxes, no, I haven't studied Irish tax law at all. All right. Freebird says 20 years ago, we used to have fast track, but life is very different today. Well, life is different today because the average person kowtows and just caves in at the slightest indication of pressure. Now, I don't know what it is, man. When I was a kid, I just could not accept the fact that authority is a real thing. You know, what is it about a costume that has this word bylaw or peace officer or police? When you put that on, somehow you now are on duty, and now the universe understands that you have some kind of authority just because that stupid crap is on your body. I've always rejected that fundamentally. And I reject the fact that any human being has got power over me unless I willingly give it to them. And the only way to get power over me is to hire me. Now, because if the paycheck is really good, I'm going to do a lot for that paycheck. And if you want me to do something without paying me, you better point a loaded weapon at me and be prepared to kill. All right. That's just how it is. You'll get what you want so long as you have the weapon. God help you when you don't. So I'd like all of you to start thinking the exact same way. Kevin, if you ever want some cool custom TIG weld art, let me know. Yeah, TIG Devil, right behind me. This wall's kind of blank. I would love to get some cool stuff up there. So let me know. Let me know where you are. Contact me on my website, please. I'd love to talk with you for sure. And Chili Betty says she voted for Trump today. That's fantastic. If I have a small business in Canada, do I have to pay my tax? If it's a sole proprietorship, don't ever register those, by the way, please. Those are the dumbest things in the world to do. They are attached directly to your social insurance number. Yes, you can have a lot of write-offs, but in case you do get into financial difficulty with your business, you can't sell it because it's you. But if you have yourself a corporation, TIG Devil, get a hold of me. I do private seminars on how to never pay tax again. So you want to get a hold of me on that one for sure. All right. Jackie says, thank you. The nanas of Ireland are the ones standing up and being counted. Yeah, I know. Men aren't men anymore. Another topic for another day. Alrighty. I've been asked some pretty serious questions here. I was going to go through a few of them. Mitch says, you're ignorant when it comes to crypto. I will have to start doing crypto shows, but not yet. I'll get some pros on to talk about crypto for you. JJ says, I guess I'll be incorporating. Yeah, JJ, get a hold of me. I'll take care of the incorporation. It takes 3 days. We'll get you that, get you the GST number, and I'll give you all the instructions that you need to protect every penny that you make, every single penny. Gina's asking, Kevin, would Royal Bank of Canada branch in Georgia, United States, report a mortgage to a Canadian? A mortgage a Canadian has to the CRA? It's a possibility, Gina, but what you've got to do is you got to go into the bank and talk to the branch manager and ask them if the RBC branch is franchised or corporately owned out of Canada or corporately owned out of the United States. Find that out, get a hold of me, and then we'll get you the answer that you're looking for. All right. What do you know, Kevin, about the vacant home tax? Well, let's read the article here. The vacant home tax declaration period for the 2024 tax year will open November 1st, tomorrow. The deadline to dispute your bill for the 2022 and 2023 taxation year is December 31st of this year. The vacant home tax program requires, all right? That word means we want you to volunteer. That's all that it means. The vacant home tax program requires homeowners in Toronto to let the city know if their property is occupied or vacant every year by making a declaration. The goal of the program is to increase the supply of housing by, threatening homeowners to make their vacant residential property available for rent or sale. So if you tell them, I own 2 houses, and I don't live in one, and nobody lives in one, I'm using it to store my collector antique guitars, they're going to say, nope, you got to rent it out. So why would you tell them that? It's just the city of Toronto. You don't tell city staff what you have. Are you kidding me? Owners who choose to keep their properties vacant are subject to a tax, with the revenue being allocated to the affordable housing initiatives. That's if you blab. But here's the other thing. That's also if you decide to put multiple homes in your own personal name, which is really stupid, by the way. Why would you do that? Nothing should be in your name. So if you want to avoid vacant home taxes anywhere in Canada and capital gains taxes anywhere in Canada, get a hold of me. I'm going to register a numbered corporation for you, and we're going to put that numbered corporation on the title of your home to completely protect it. And then that way, when they start asking you for taxes or declarations, just ignore them. That's what we do. We ignore them at that point. Especially if we declare in your corporate bylaws, when we register your corporation, we simply declare that it's a holding company. This company does not conduct business. Beautiful. How do you transfer title if you have a mortgage? Sneakily, you go to the properties branch on your own. Don't involve a lawyer. This is you. You're the owner of your house. You add the numbered corporation to title and just sit on it for a while, making sure that your mortgage has at least 5 years left on it. And then you sneakily and quietly remove you and don't say a word to the banks. What's the point? If they've already given you the mortgage, the lien's against the property, not you. So go ahead and make the switch, but keep your mouth shut. Don't tell people anything at all. And you know, there's a lot of folks out there that will tell you all kinds of crazy stuff that you have to do. Yeah, everyone talks out of their asses because everybody wants to sound important. Here's one that really gets on my nerves. Is if you don't live in Canada anymore, you have to call the CRA and tell them. No, you don't. You just put down your income at $5,000 and that's the end of it. Send it in. You know, they'll send you a carbon credit check. You don't tell them anything. It's none of their business that you may not be coming back. The advantage, if you do leave Canada, let's say you want to leave for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The advantage to you by not declaring, I'm never coming back, is that you can open Canadian corporations and open Canadian bank accounts and do business in Canada, so long as you've got an agent to take care of stuff like a paralegal, for example, in Canada. You can do all this stuff. But if you sever all of your ties to the country, then you can't. Why listen to stupid people? If you start taking advice for life from your friends, they're not going to be your friends as soon as that advice goes wrong. So don't listen to dumbasses. That's all I can tell you on that. If you, let's say, however, you're going to get some contract, the United States, and they're going to say, I'm putting you on a 15-year contract. You must stay within the United States for this contract, and we'll pay you $250,000 a year. Are you going to say, yeah, I'll take that contract? At that point, you could sever your ties to Canada. And then when you return 15 years later after that contract's done, as a very wealthy person, you could declare yourself returning if you wanted to. But I'm telling everyone, it's no one's business what you're doing. So really, don't get on social media telling everyone, I just took a job in New York. Why would you do that? I don't get it. Why do people put photographs of their children on social media? You buy a new car and you show it off on social media. You sell your house and you brag. I bought it for $300,000. I sold it for $6 million. What a smart person I am. Why do you people do these things? Shut up about your personal lives. Stop talking. All right? Here, this is what you should do about your entire personal life.
What should you do if the Canada Revenue Agency calls you?
Shut up! Quiet! I said quiet! What's the matter? You deaf or something?
All right, that's what you should do. You got to be quiet. Stop talking. And I've covered this one before. I'm going to cover it again now. What should you do when a loved one dies? When do you contact the Canada Revenue Agency? 3 years after they're dead. Actually, not even when they're dead. 3 years after you've drained everything out. Once you've got the properties moved, the bank accounts emptied, the RSPs drained, once you've got all that done, then and only then do you report the person died. But the tax returns, you don't put numbers on them. The CRA is going to say, well, what did they earn? Well, nothing, you idiot. He's been dead for 3 years. So you put the name and social insurance number on it, sign it, put the word deceased right across it. Death certificate number, mail it in. Never tell the CRA that a loved one has died. They will send letter after letter after letter out the door. They're going to catch you when you're in a state of vulnerability, and you're going to be afraid of what they send. So again, shut up about your personal lives. Don't go on social media saying, Mommy died, Daddy died, my doggy died. Don't look for sympathy online from people that you don't know. It's going to cost you money. We don't live in private times anymore, and everybody out there wants one-upmanship on everybody else. So please stop talking. All right? Getting back to what I was saying earlier in the show about laws versus acts, everything to do with inheritance, everything to do with estates, everything to do with your personal tax, your corporate tax, your corporate income tax, your payroll tax, GST, they're not laws. None of them are laws. They are all acts. So the Canada Revenue Agency is lying to you, just like tonight's show was called Acts, Laws, and Lies. They are lying to you about the fact that you've got to do what these acts say. You truly do not have to do any of these things. You don't have to pay tax in Canada. You just got to report the stuff. Just get them off your back and give them the minimal amount. If you're worried about how to do a tax return to get rid of them, contact me. I'll take care of all your personal taxes. Here's a funny one for you. Did you know that you can submit 10 tax returns for yourself a day, every day, 365 days a year? Yeah. You can submit 3,650 tax returns if you wanted to. And the CRA would have to look at them all. You could send one in for $1 and then say, oh, what was I thinking? $1 trillion. Oh, what was I thinking? 100,000. Oh, 250. You could do this every single solitary day in Canada, and the CRA would have to scrutinize every single one. Could you imagine if 1 million Canadians started putting in 10 tax returns a day with different amounts? All right. Because when you sign the bottom, you would actually put a note on it. You could use masking tape or just white out or whatever else, and then write on it saying, may not be accurate, sign it, throw it in. And if they had to look at 3.5 to 4 million tax returns a month that were just bogus, they wouldn't have time to scrutinize anything or anyone. Now, somebody asked me what I was talking about 2 weeks ago when I said that there's a civil war taking place inside the Canada Revenue Agency right now. All right, we're going to talk about that. Some people may not like what I'm going to say here, but yeah, it's my show. And I've always chosen just to tell the truth on my own show because it's more fun than trying to make stuff up. All right. The Canada Revenue Agency officially has more people working for it than the Canadian military does. They had hired 30,000 diversity hires, people with intelligence quotients way low, like under 80. Really, really, really dumb people from really, really horrible countries that work for the CRA. And they don't get along. You know, if I've got my numbers right, Nigeria, for example, has got 154 different tribes living within the country, and they hate each other. All right. Ethiopians hate Eritreans, but Ethiopians, they're split into two groups, the Tigrays and the Amharas. And the Tigrays have been killing the Amharas for the last 50 years. So they hate each other. And they put Amharas and Tigrays in the same office together because they don't know any better. And people in Canada, they're stupid, right? They have no clue what the dichotomy of Nigeria is. So they'll say, oh, you're from Nigeria, and you're from Nigeria, and you're from Nigeria. Okay, we're going to put all of you in the same room at the same desk. But those of you who know what's going on in Nigeria, there's a province called Biafra that wants to separate from Nigeria. Biafrans hate everybody else in Nigeria. Boko Haram runs the entire north end of Nigeria, sorry, and they can't stand the Christians, right? So the Christians and the Muslims are at each other's throats. Then there's the smaller sect on the west side of the country that can't stand either party. So you've got these massive battles going on in Nigeria. Then you've got all these Nigerians that you've hired who absolutely hate each other, want to kill each other, and you're putting them all in the same office together and then saying, do your job and call Canadians who are born in Canada and steal their money. So they're all fighting with each other all the time. The Canada Revenue Agency is having a really difficult time with this, by the way. And what they are doing now is putting most of these people into home offices and then giving them toll-free numbers and cell phone numbers so they can work from home. Now, what happens here is when any of these particular individuals work from home and they pester one of my clients, they have no choice but to give their home office phone number to my client. I will make the phone call on behalf of my client, and if the person's polite, I don't publish their office phone number. If they're rude or they get on my nerves, then I do publish it, and I ask all of you to call them politely and just ask questions about their role and ask questions about their knowledge base to do with taxes and the law. And the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't like it when I publish people's phone numbers because the CRA is spending a lot of money getting more and more toll-free numbers to put into people's homes so the Nigerians don't kill each other in the office, so that the Eritreans don't kill the Ethiopians, so the Sudanese don't kill the Egyptians in the office. It is insane what's going on. And it's worse if it's Pakistanis versus Indians. Yeah, Indians. They're at each other's throats. If it's an Iraqi and a Saudi Arabian in the same office, they're at each other's throats. There's a lot of people in Canada that don't seem to understand how much strife there is all over the world. And this internal civil war that's going on right now in the Canada Revenue Agency is very good for all of us, because now we can do our taxes our way and get all of our money back from these maniacs before the entire CRA is broke. And by the way, the CRA is broke. I know this because whenever we do get our clients really big tax returns, like, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth, when I get these large returns, it takes the CRA 3 or 4 months to pay them, because what they've got to do is collect more money, bring it in to pay all the refunds out. So it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid. That's what it is. They don't have the money in the bank anymore. Like they're surviving seemingly month to month now. They got to rob Peter to pay Paul, and they got to rob both Paul and Peter to pay Steve. And then they lie to Steve and try to get all that money back. It's crazy. All right. Oh, Marie asks a very good question here. Now you've heard it all. Why does the Canada Revenue Agency hire these people to work for them? Very simple reason. Their policy, not law, but their policy at the Canada Revenue Agency is to send you a letter, make 3 phone calls, send you a letter. If they're unable to reach you or get you to cooperate with them, that's when they send garnishment notices out to your boss or to your bank. Now, what happens when you're born in Canada and you speak perfect English and someone calls you on the phone and you don't understand a word they're saying, but they're acting rude and belligerent? What do? You hang up the phone because you're aggravated. These people are aggravating, so I get it. But if you hang up on them, it counts as one of those 3 phone calls that they have to make. So they are deliberately getting these non-English speaking maniacs to make phone calls to all of you to get through those 3 phone calls as per their policy without you cooperating because you don't understand them. Specifically and only to garnish your wages. It's a very sick system. The corporation's got to be taken down. I can't stand them, and I'm doing my part to bankrupt them. All right, let me have a quick look here. All right, just looking at your questions here in the Rumble Room. Okay, Mr. Vic's asking, why do you have to make sure you have at least 5 years left on your mortgage when you flip the name of your house? Well, because you're going to have to renew your mortgage if you don't pay it off. If you've got let's say a 15-year, 20-year mortgage, and then you switch the house into a numbered corporation, well, you've still got 20 years on that mortgage before they figure out that you've switched the title of the house. All right. So if you're going to pull stunts, make sure you have enough time left. Like if you have only 3 or 4 months left in your mortgage in Canada, you don't be playing games of flipping your property ownership. Renew the mortgage for 10 years and then flip it. That's how you do it. All right. Someone says language is not a knowledge. You speak a perfect English. It doesn't mean you're clever. Your success rate with what you try to attain as a goal, that shows that you're clever. Your capacity to win a debate without violence, that would mean that you're clever. Your capacity to outwit and outsmart opponents without having to use weapons to do so means that you are clever. Language is a technology. So I'm going to say I disagree with you a little bit there. Let me just give you a quick rundown on language here, all right? The English language, with all the technical terms and whatnot out there, has about 400,000 words in it. And the average man, by the time he's 40, and I mean the average man, only knows about 40,000 words. But the hyper-successful businessman knows between 80 and 100,000 words. The definitions of them, not necessarily etymology, but definitely the definitions. So when you factor in the average guy who knows 40,000 words and then compare him to the other guy whose vocabulary is double, and because every word in English pertains to a person, place, thing, historical event, or otherwise, then that's 40,000 more things that hyper-successful businessman knows. He's hyper-successful because his vocabulary is huge. I'm trying to remember the name of the author that said so, but he did say that I've noticed that there is only one thing that separates the unsuccessful man from the hyper-successful man, and often only one, a large vocabulary. So somebody who has a vocabulary of 120,000 words or more is clever. I'm going to have to disagree with your comment, but thank you for making it. Margaret says, what happens if the CRA finds out? Sorry, Margaret, what if they find out about what? If you could let me know on that, please clarify your question. I'll gladly answer that for you. I'm just going to be checking the Facebook room now. Let's see where we have any questions there. Okay. All right. Carol says, I bet the CRA would love to shut you up. Yeah, of course they would. If the Canada Revenue Agency had it their way, there'd be a bullet in my head right now. They know that I'm going to cost them billions of dollars, but they also know that I'm going to do that because they don't have any laws to back them up. What they would need to do is have a whole bunch of laws written to stop me from representing clients and stop me from investigating them. But it's public information. How are they going to stop that? No, it's not going to happen. They're not going to stop me. If the CRA was smart, if the Canada Revenue Agency said, this Johnston guy, this guy here, he's got a big mouth. He's never going to shut up. And they would be right to say that, by the way, on both counts. Why don't we just give this guy $25 million US and make him sign an NDA and shut him up? I could probably be persuaded to shut up for $25 million. Then I would switch careers. I don't know, maybe do something nutty like, I know what I would do. I'd buy one of those planes that does zero-G dives. That would be a good time. Parabolic. Was it a parabolic or hyperbolic arch? No, parabolic. Parabolic arch flying where you're weightless for up to a minute and a half. Yeah, probably do something like that. I don't know, tourism. I'd switch careers at that point. So let's see if the Canada Revenue Agency is smart. You guys are going to try to get rid of me with the courts. It's not going to work. You'll threaten me. It's not going to work. You got nothing to threaten me with. So why don't you make me an offer I can't refuse? It's incredible. The Canadian government, they've tried everything to get me to shut up. Everything except bribery. Isn't that funny? They never tried the one thing that every other government in the world will do. The Canadian government hasn't tried that. Losers. Not very smart. All righty. I'm just going to go back now to some of your questions here. Would I sell out, Kevin? I would say when I got a bit older, if I started having health problems, let's hope I don't, but let's say I was 70 years old and I had crippling arthritis and I couldn't move my hands or my wrists and I had cataracts and whatnot, I'd sell out at that point so I could get some surgery to get myself all patched up and alleviate myself of all of the stress. But, by the time I'm 70, that's like almost 20 years, 17 years where I can teach other Canadians to take up this mantle. So I could do a lot of damage by the time I would be at sellout age. At 70, though, I think we should all sell out at 70, don't you? Hey, life is really short. And at 70 years of age, I would have to pay attention greatly to the fact that there would only be about 15 years to go. And right now, I think the only person that's doing their 70s properly is Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if you guys seen that show he does, Tulsa King. The guy looks fantastic. He looks like he's enjoying life more in his 70s than he's ever done before. So I guess I'm just going to say that if I stay healthy and never get any major ailments or whatnot, and I'm enjoying myself still, no, I'm not going to sell out. So long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, no. Egregious health issues? Yes. All right, moving on. All righty. So someone was asking me about tax reform in Canada. And they were asking me if I could break down upcoming tax law changes and how it's going to affect everything. All right. Well, capital gains is the big one, where Trudeau wants to increase the amount of capital gain that we are all paying on our homes and our corporate properties and gold and silver and whatever else. But as we've said before, if you come to me to get your taxes done, there isn't going to be any capital gain, because it's not my job to scrutinize your life and say, hey, dude, come on. Right? If you got a second house, you got to tell me so that I can tell the CRA you got a second house and screw you. That ain't my job. My job is to get your taxes done to the greatest benefit of you, not the CRA. I'm not here to raise funds for the CRA. I'm here to save you money. I'm here to protect you from the CRA, because they are animals and criminals, maniacs. I can't stand them. So I'm not going to be screwing you over. I'm not going to hire private investigators to investigate my clients to see what you have. I don't have a license for them to pull, by the way. And that's the other part that drives everybody in the government crazy, is I don't have a license for you to pull from me. So too bad. And clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says that anyone can represent you. Here I am. All right, there we go. Rocket says, so I have a normal paid by the hour job. Could you stop them from taking taxes off my check? Yes, Rocket. There's ways. It's not just going to be where I sign a magical piece of paper and it disappears. It's an effort. There are steps that I have to take, but get a hold of me and we certainly can talk about that. The chosen one says, I wish you were in the UK. I don't know, man. I'm seeing what's going on in the United Kingdom. I don't think anyone should be there if you want the truth. Every billionaire who lived in the United Kingdom has now left because the UK is that screwed. It's horrible there. I actually feel terrible for Brits in every way. If you're English, if you're Welsh, Scottish, you're Irish, it's a horrible scene right there. And the only thing that's going to ever get me to go to the United Kingdom, maybe, is business, but it would have to be one hell of a deal. I think the UK is something I should avoid for now because there are a set group of people there that are not very much fans of mine. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So tax reforms. So carbon tax rebates, they're a joke, $700 a year. Whenever we do taxes for our clients, if they have a very low income, there's a lot of people out there who are making less than $20,000 a year now, which is really sad. So when they're making low amounts of money like that, this carbon tax that Trudeau is patting himself on the back for is only about $700, maybe $740, maybe for the entire year. And the GST credit that you would get back so you can spend a little bit of money back into the economy might be $350. It's not much. So it's not even worth looking at. As for the best record keeping practice, good question. The best thing that you can do for your records is ship them to me in Panama. That way they are outside of the jurisdiction of the CRA and the Canadian government. And there's no way for them to audit you if I'm the one holding your records. They would have to beg me to show them to them. But because I'm representing you in a client solicitor privilege, I am not obligated to do so. In fact, I can't. Legally, I can't. So even if I wanted to show them your files, I can't. And if I'm storing your files, the CRA is out of luck. You're in luck. They're out of luck. So that is another surefire way for all of you to keep your, in Canada anyway. United States, I don't know if I can do this for you, but in Canada, I can absolutely store all your files here in Panama and keep them away from the CRA. And the CRA gets only what we choose to show them. Margaret's asking if I'm a lawyer. No, but I'm better than most lawyers. I love knowing the law in Canada because the law is extremely one-sided. It's very much against the people, not for the people. And so I help as many Canadians as I possibly can by knowing the law. K-Rob is asking me this question here. Are you still enjoying your life very much in Panama? Of course I am. The country's incredible. I absolutely love Panama. Panama City is awesome, man. There's a mall here that's 1.1 kilometers long. So when we get sometimes awful rainstorms come in, no problem. I take a $3 Uber ride to the mall. I put on my my foot counter and I'll do my 20,000 steps inside the mall. And then I will go to the gym inside the mall. And then I will go to a steakhouse and have a $7 steak. That's about 12 ounces, along with yuca fries, which taste better than potato. Yeah. Oh, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll fry plantain. Oh, man, when you have hot sauce on plantain, oh, it's so good. I know. So I know I'm having the time of my life here. And thank you very much, K-Rob, for asking me about that. Margaret, I mentioned client-solicitor relationship. Yeah, well, I would be your solicitor from the standpoint only that I'm representing you. All right, so I'm not a lawyer, but I can still have that privilege with you. Because if you choose me to represent you, and I do, I can never be called to testify against you. And I simply cannot give up any of your information to any branch of government. I cannot take the stand against you. So it's better to hire me than a lawyer. And I don't charge lawyers rates either. How much should I earn per month to live in Panama? Oh, here? If you want to live in a nice place, in a good neighborhood, and eat well, 30,000 US a year, and you can have yourself a great place to live and great food and have a great time. You could go out 3 or 4 nights a week and enjoy yourself. Movies here are $6. A lot of restaurants are between $3 and $10 for good food. You can go to really expensive restaurants if you want. They do exist, but I don't see the point. I would go to the restaurants that are humble and delicious and inexpensive. Is it easier to open a bank account in Panama and have an ATM card than in Canada? Well, a Canadian bank account is really easy to open up because there's so many of them. In Panama, if you're a Panamanian citizen, you'll have a bank account open in about an hour. If you're not a citizen or a resident, you'll have a bank account open in about 5 days. They just want to do their due diligence report and make sure that you're not a hardcore criminal, somebody who's a murderer or otherwise, because they won't do business with you. But if you're someone who's just got a couple of drinking tickets or whatever else, they don't care about that stuff. You'll get a bank account in no time. There we go. D. Catherine is asking me, do you have to do a capital gains on a parent's home when they pass away? If you report your parent's death, they'll ask, but you don't have to do anything about it. What you should do, Catherine, or D. Catherine, I think your name is you got to get a hold of someone like myself. There's not too many guys out there like me who will tell you the truth about protecting the estate. It would be better if while your parents are alive, we register a numbered corporation as a holding company and put your parents' property into the ownership of that numbered corporation, and then make you a 1% shareholder of the corporation, split the difference with them. So like they'll take 49, you get 2, 1 or 2, or your siblings split what's left there. And when your parents die off, their shares revert to you. So the house doesn't have to change hands because it's already in the numbered corporation. And that is how you deal with that, is contact me and we're going to hide the property. When your parents die, say nothing to anybody. In Canada, especially, be quiet about it. You're going to tell the CRA 3 years after. And you've got to be careful in Canada. If your parents die, do not go to a lawyer to get the house. Do it yourself, or do it through a paralegal and let them know that there's no probate. You don't want probate. Nobody's contesting anything. Because the lawyers, they'll take a $50,000 deposit. Immediately, they'll put the lien on the property to take that. Do not let your house go into probate, period. So your parents and you need to have that conversation. And if your parents are going to say, well, I don't know, I'm just not comfortable with that, scold them. Because I hear this stupid crap all the time, and it does irritate me. And it mostly comes from women. Ladies, this is not a sexist thing. This is, I get it. Women in Canada and the United States like comfortable lives. They like stability. There's no such thing, just for the record. And what they'll say is, well, I don't know. It's been in our name for 40 years. Why change it now? To protect it. That's why. Anything at all to protect what you have is what you do. It doesn't matter that the house has been in your name for 40 years. Change it to a numbered corporation tomorrow and it's safe. It's still yours. Just change the ownership record to something that you control. And I get this all the time. There's a lot of wives out there, married couples contact me all the time to protect their assets, but it's the wife that stops it because it's fear. Well, I don't know. I just don't think. Like, it doesn't matter that you don't think it's a good idea. I want you to go and research it and find out with case law and fact why it's not a good idea, and then come to me with the hard evidence that it's not a good idea. And of course, no one ever does that. It's just fear. Like the gears begin to turn, like, oh, and the first thing that most of your minds will go to is, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to lose the house. Why do adults think like that? You're an adult. Once you're over the age of 25, you no longer have the luxury of thinking this way. You're in your own way. You're your own worst enemy. And I am a big believer in that adage of you are your own worst enemy when you are making decisions based on fear. It's really sick. So some people pay me a bundle of money to get their houses moved into corporations. And 10 times out of 10, it's the gentleman's wife who says, oh, I changed my mind. I don't want, just keep the money. I'm not going to do it. It's weird. And I'm telling you, because after I do all the document prep, I got to get paid. The CPA's got to get paid. The lawyers got to get paid. The couriers have got to get paid. Yeah. There's a lot of people getting paid on this. So I'm just wondering why you would hire me to protect your property and then stop me in the middle of it. It doesn't make sense. So you need to be ready to make the change. And now more so than ever before, because the economy of Canada and the United States is tanking. Let's see what happens on November 5th, but everything's starting to tank, everybody. So you've got to protect yourselves completely. Good question here from the chosen one. Can I run a business in Panama as a British citizen? Yep. Come on down, register a corporation, get yourself a corporate bank account, do business. Now, there are things you cannot do in Panama as a non-citizen. Retail stores are very much part of the culture here. So they want the locals to run the retail stores, which means as a foreigner, you cannot be a merchant, but you can run a restaurant. You can have a courier office. You can be a consultant for any field if you want. They're desperate for underwater welders here. You'll probably get $350 US an hour if you wanted to do that as a job. There's a lot of opportunity here. But register a corporation in Panama and hide your money in a Panamanian bank account. Life is good. Life is very good if you do just that. Okay. K Mars is asking me, I missed earlier. Can you please repeat how to get in touch with you? Could everybody please put my official website address down here in the TikTok chat and over here in Kick, please? And well, here it is right there on Rumble. You can't miss it there. So get a hold of me on my website, hit me on the contact form, and let's talk about your taxes. What is your business name? Some ask me what you do and what your type. What I do? Buy and sell corporations that are dying. Help Canadians get out of their personal tax. Help Americans get out of their corporate tax. Help Canadians get out of CERB debt, CEBA loan debt, bank debt, GST debt. I clear all those debts up for absolutely everybody. Canmore Acquisitions is the name of the company, and Canmore Acquisitions is registered in Canada, United States, and Panama. It's in all three countries. Oh, and the Panamanian one owns them all, just for the record. Yeah. Yeah, Marie, security and safety, those things are an illusion. You always have to be forever vigilant. Enjoy the comfort while it's there, because it may not be there tomorrow. So you've always got to prep for it. And as soon as you know that your comfort levels are going to be gone, you have to make a complete and severe adjustment in your life to be able to retain that. So that means you're going to be uncomfortable for a short while before you go back to comfort. Don't be afraid to fix what's wrong in your life. Rocket says, laugh out loud, Kevin. You don't know how many times I want to call you and have my wife listen. She would freak. All right. Well, set a meeting up. I'll tell her everything she needs to know. I'm in. User 96. Doesn't the ownership change triggers a capital gain or welcome tax? How much do you sell it for? No. No, the capital gain tax, yeah, it only shows up if you shoot your mouth off. If you tell the CRA, hi, I want to give you money. I got a capital gain. Here it is. That's how I feel about people that report this stuff. No, they don't know that you sold the property until you report it to them. And let's say one day they start going through property records and they ask you what happened. You would hire me. I would contact the CRA and I would send them a letter saying that we are not willing to discuss anything in my client's private life currently. The questions that you ask are quite frankly rude and vile and none of your business. Discontinue all communication now. The file is closed and they have no choice but to close the file. It's that simple. Why would you tell somebody that you made money on a property? That's your business, nobody else's. Mitch, What does what cost? If you could clarify what you're looking for there, I'll get you an answer. If you don't report a death for 3 years, doesn't the CRA, when it's reported, demand a payment for those 3 years? No, they issue an assessment for those 3 years against the deceased person. And if you want to tie them up for a while, you object to it, and 3 years later, you'll get an appeal date. But good luck. The person has passed away. So they're not going to be showing up for court. You can show up on their behalf and say, here's the death certificate. The person's been dead for 6 years now. So, Your Honor, this is harassment. Throw this out. And they probably will. Okay. Just checking out more of your questions here. What if I inherit my mother's house and I go to sell it? Shh. You get your mom's house, you want to turn around and sell it? By all means, sell it. I wouldn't tell anybody about it at all. Just keep in mind, especially in today's market, you don't really make money selling property. You make money hanging on to it. So I'm wondering, would you not rather hang on to it and rent it out? Would that not be a better use of your time and better use of that house as a resource? I have to leave that decision up to you, but I would say that as long as you keep your mouth closed about what you're doing, there's going to be no capital gains tax. Get a hold of me. I'll make sure there's no capital gains tax. That's just how that works. All right, let me check the Facebook room here. Okay, I'm just going to read. D. Catherine's asking me, what I mean is in the will, it says the property is to be sold and the sales to be divided, but is the house going to be charged capital gains on the sale? Okay, Catherine, good question. Here's the biggest problem with siblings. When mom and dad die, the siblings start arguing. Well, I cut the grass 17 more times than you did, so I get more. And if you can't agree on what to do with the house, what happens? One of the idiot siblings will then put the house into probate. First things first, the lawyer's going to grab $50,000, $60,000 out of the whole thing. And then he'll stretch it out for a year or two to get more money out of it. So by the time you get the house, you've lost half the value. That's the problem. So the siblings, a smart move would just be to put all 3 of your names on the property or get a numbered corporation and all 3 of you become shareholders and rent the place out. Why is everyone in a hurry to sell houses? Man, hang on to them. A house can bring you revenue for the rest of the existence of your family line. Yeah, think about the Rothschilds. They probably own the better part of 1 million homes out there. All of them are making money. You know, being a landlord makes money. So if there is a situation where you've got siblings who are greedy and whatnot, then what we got to do is talk to your parents before they die, and we got to get your parents into a numbered corporation for their property. And then the bylaws of the numbered corporation that owns the house will be dominant over the will because the bylaws have been sworn in. That's it. And the will probably hasn't been. So let's understand that in this lifetime, you should not be fighting with your siblings or anybody else because the lawyers will get all your money if you can't get along. All right, here's a question about tax implications of digital assets and cryptocurrency. It's kind of a long question. With the increasing popularity of Bitcoin and other digital assets, how can Canadians navigate tax implications of trading, mining, and earning crypto? You shut up about it. Quiet. God, if you had Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and Kronos and Floki and all the others, why would you tell the Canada Revenue Agency that you've got these sources of income? See, here's the crazy part of it. Let's just say, for example, you buy a Bitcoin. 3 years ago, it was 25,000. Now it's 100,000 Canadian. So what are you going to do? You're going to report a capital gain of $75,000 each year that you have it? What if it drops back down to 25,000 in a bear market? The CRA is not going to pay you back on that capital gain. So you got to shut up. The only thing that'll happen is if you're telling the Canada Revenue Agency that you have crypto, is they're going to tax you every year and you will never be able to report the capital loss because they haven't written the rules in there yet for them to return your money to you. So if you've got a crypto wallet, if you've got a hard wallet, even better, quiet. If you're on any of the major platforms like Binance or crypto.com or Kraken or any of those guys, quiet. You gotta make sure that you're not talking about what you have because they're gonna want it. Now, they have no way to get it. They're not gonna get a court order to make you release it, but they're going to assess your taxes based on that. All right, that's what's going on there. So, shut up. Mverse is asking, are you familiar with revocable trusts? Do I do them? This time next year, I plan to be an expert in them. I haven't done them yet, but I do deal with lawyers who set up trusts. They're expensive. So I haven't been recommending it. We've been hiding everything in numbered corporations because they're inexpensive compared to what a lawyer is going to charge for trusts. We'll get there. Canmore acquisitions will eventually be there. Don't worry about that. A year from now, no problem. What wallet do you recommend to hold XRP? Crypto.com is the one that I enjoy the most. It's got the ability to sell, buy, and trade, swap any currency you want. You could have mini Flokiata and buy Bitcoin with it. You could have Litecoin and buy XRP with it. You can bounce your money all over the place. And they've even got this really cool feature where I'm sure a lot of you have done this, where you've made a bunch of trades and you end up with, 10 cents of Bitcoin and 40 cents of XRP and 90 cents of Shiba Inu. And you've got like $9, but it's all in little pieces of crypto. Then you just go to crypto.com, you say cash in dust or convert dust. They call it dust in the crypto world. So you get your $9 into Bitcoin, right? They'll actually do all of that for you. It's a really cool platform. It's a lot of fun, especially if you bought, let's say 100 Bitcoins 10 years ago, you have a lot of money you can just play with. And I've played the up and down market with a lot of coins on crypto.com. It is fun. But I mean, Andrea, any of the standard wallets are going to be fine. It's going to be a matter of which one do you think is the best for you. Kraken has the good mobile wallet. The hard wallets, those ones are good. Margaret says, if the deceased person has a government pension, by not declaring their death, this income is still received. Yes, it is in the way of checks or in the way of deposits, right? So what you would do at that point, if it's checks, then you can simply just write down moved and don't cash them. All right. Or if it goes into the parent's bank account, you could leave that bank account open if you wanted to, earn interest on it. And when they ask for the money back, pay them back. You could do that. But yes, if you don't report the death to the government, the pension will continue to roll in. It's up to you what you want to do with it. I don't recommend doing anything other than eventually trying to get it back to them, saying, oops, we just forgot. Dad died, got hit by a car, and his torso was over there, and his head was 15 yards down that way. We just forgot. We forgot he died. So here's your checks back. Don't keep the pension money as much as we'd all like to do